Unknown, Part 3. For the record, this is me, at 15, naked in a mountain lake, surrounded by forest and loved ones. Happy. I have known freedom. The feeling. Well enough, that is, to understand the difference between the feeling and reality. I wanted to believe that because I'd risked, I had achieved, that I was worthy. But that has nothing to do with it. Hard work cannot earn you what was never on the table to begin with. You couldn't have told that to 18-year-old me who was going to wander off into the wilderness and be fine. I'd already learned it on my own, the hard way, or so I thought. I thought God was love, that problems and solutions were internal because the observer impacts the outcome by having to choose which of the two things to measure. I was taking a lot of amphetamines at the time. The first time I took acid, I was 14. It was wonderful. By the time I was 17, I'd been legally owned by 3 very different kinds of people. 2 were fellow women. I believe that drugs helped me to endure the tremendous pain that I might not have otherwise survived. They kept my faith alive, in beauty, in pleasure, in humanity. Because, for all the bad things associated with dealers and drugs, I saw some amazing things. I saw all kinds of people really being there for each other, more often than not. Me along with them. I saw love. Besides which, they were hilarious and talented. We felt for each other such strong feelings. But feeling does not always mean the same thing to different people, regardless of effort or belief. Regardless of desire for relief and temporary respite after so much risk, perhaps deserving should matter. But whatever that might mean to institutions of justice, it seems to mean something different to reality. At least. I don't believe that people deserve what they get, and get what they deserve, or earn. I've met plenty of folks who got so much less love than they gave, so much less means than the money they made for their own masters, legal or otherwise. For the record, I spent my childhood cooking food, caring for children, cleaning house, appeasing men, and resenting it like hell, furious about the constant condescension. No, not like chores. My earliest memory is of making a formula bottle for my babysitter, hoping that I didn't mess it up this time, like last time. Must have been about 3 or 4. By the time I was 8, I was my brother's keeper, and terrible at it. I worked hard to stay gone after I left. Worked hard to keep free of hate, of survivor's guilt, and the demands of people willfully ignorant enough to be assumptive, to keep that feeling alive until I could spend my whole life living. After 15, my life would not be survival. After 18, I grew out my body hair. I worked hard to keep from having to sell my body and mostly succeeded, except for modeling, because it paid more than pennies. Though the stealthless, staring traffic ever stalked, hurling job offer threats at every bus stop, and also between them, some girls were not so lucky. There were still promises to keep to my younger selves, who had to grow up fast and kind and strong, but also wanted to. The seniors sent home for falling towers to find the phones all filled with clicks, the freshmen who'd been locked down for Columbine only to see a ban on coats. I was still reluctant to admit the value of regret, that an enemy could be external, could withstand my agape, my strife to understand, if I was just wonderful enough. By 20, I was trying to figure out a way to disappear for good into the wilderness, protesting the war, collecting signatures against fracking in Paonia, registering people to vote, evangelically vegan, and making my own clothes. By 24, 9 years after my great escape, I realized that daddy capitalism was going to be much harder to evade than my first owner ever could have been, even if it was possible that I wasn't always my own best friend. I certainly had never been my own worst enemy. The flow of commerce was dead set against me disappearing into any wilderness. For the record, I'd known that it was a bullshit setup since rent and work had been explained to me a score earlier. I remember the conversation clearly. Driving up to the apartment building, 4 years old, asking, seeing 9900 in white on dark red, thinking to myself that he was simply a fool who had been had, that I would do differently. If I could choose, my superpower would be perfect regeneration. He chose forgetfulness. Shows what I knew. Wolverine has a real bad time. Although I love. By 25, I donated a trailer that had been given to me to the park itself, the villains, because I couldn't afford to fix or maintain it, and it should have been condemned, the death trap, so I couldn't very well pass it on in good conscience. I'd like to think that while I was a proud abolitionist, I was never an absolutist, but during that in-between year when I had that terrible salvia divinorum trip that made me miss everything real and then revealed my life as a funneled nightmare, was when my brother went off to war. And what had not seemed particularly simple before got way more complicated in reality. Also my feelings. After one tour, we saw each other and he dropped me off at my decrepit trailer and saw my bong on the floor, Siebenschläfer, and didn't speak to me again for 10 years. Not that we had been close before, I just knew that after that, I wanted to be. For the record, I am by far more proud of my many spontaneous accomplishments than of the stamina with which I have been gifted that allowed me to endure. But survival wasn't a given. It was an accomplishment, and so remains for many. A difficult, painful obligation to fulfill for all the love and resource poured into me, a response to the fellow women who called it wrong with such confidence, who have hurt my heart the most for all their opportunity and access, though they have also helped me greatly, and I know that I am not alone, because I expect them to know better, when I know that their conditions are worse, because I vet them less, because I trust them more, instead of demanding greatness like I would of a man, or do of myself, with a constant possibility of feedback. And the men are straight up murderous. They have hurt my heart very much. So, I no longer wonder if it's me when it's not. I ask, and know well enough by now to be able to tell when it totally is me, and when it's a whole lot of someone else going on. What can you do? But let them speak for themselves. And keep on.